Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Samir Ali. I am the Executive Director here at Edify Elite, and today I'm here to talk to you about some of the common mistakes that students make when they're applying for the universities in the US. So as the application cycle is upon us for the 2026 intake, I felt it only necessary that I should go through some of the very common mistakes that students often make that lead them to not getting into a university or not getting a scholarship. So, starting off, the first thing or the first mistake that students often make is that they do not research their universities well enough. So, when a student comes to a counselor and he basically tells him about everything about his academics, about his extracurriculars, about his uh, aspirations of where he wants to go to the university. More often than not, the counselor tells him a list of universities that he should apply to. But I always tell my students or students that have come to me for their applications that you will only have confidence in yourself if you research your universities yourself as well. So if you don't research your universities, if you solely rely on your counselor's words, then you are never gonna be confident in the application that you make. So it's always a good idea, and I always tell my students that this takes about 1 month for you just to research your universities, because there are so many universities in the US that give out acceptances and that give out scholarships to international students that it becomes very you can say tangled, or you might become very tangled in like different universities or your thinking process that where you should apply and where you should not apply. So it's always a good idea to make up a list of your own and then reconcile that list with your counselor and then come up with a final list of universities where you should apply. Now, a very common mistake a student makes when he's doing step one, that is researching their universities themselves, is that they do not check the financial aid policies of that university. So when we check a university's financial aid policies, the first thing we need to check is that if that university uh, does take on a big number of international students, how high is the ratio of domestic international students to domestic students. The second thing that students should always check is their financial aid policies. Does the university give out merit-based scholarships to international students? Do they give out need-based scholarships to international students? Because a lot of the times students do aspire to get a scholarship with their acceptance or get a partial scholarship with their acceptance, but if the university has the policy that they do not give scholarships to international students, then you're basically wasting your time in a way like doing the application for that university. So it's always a good idea to check first and then research the university, like what is the scholarship criteria, what do they look at, do they only look at your academics, do they also look at your extracurriculars, do they base their decision heavily on your SAT scores or your essays. So it's always good to check their financial aid policies. Now, another thing that students do when they're doing their application is that they do not apply for their scholarships when they're doing their applications, and they sometimes forget, or they're not counseled enough to like understand the fact that they have to make the financial aid application with their university applications, because even though the deadlines for both are different, but the deadlines are not that far apart and are usually very closely knit together, and you should always check the financial aid or the different merit-based scholarships that a university is giving and then apply to them while you're doing your application, because you cannot ask a university for financial aid after you have finished your application or the university has made you an offer. It gives the university a very wrong idea about about your application, about your personality or characteristics. And sometimes, more often than not, the university does not give out any further scholarships and you fail to secure your position in that university. Again, another thing I will add here to this is that uh, more often than not, students forget or do not check the deadlines for the CSS profile, that is your that you apply for in order to get a need-based scholarship. You do not check the deadlines, and more often than not, the student gets an acceptance from the university, but he fails to go to that university because he did not fill out the CSS profile, or he did not fill out the ISFA form, and now he's stuck with a $60,000 tuition fee, but he has an acceptance and he cannot manage to go to that university with his finances. So it's very crucial that you check all the deadlines, you check all the policies. Secondly, the second thing I want to talk to you about is that it's somehow related to this, that there are a lot of colleges and universities in the US that are not in the top 200, that are not that well known, but these universities still have very excellent subject specific you can say courses or subject specific undergrad options that you can take up, which have a high employability rate. These universities do give out high scholarships to students, but these aren't generic universities. These aren't those universities which you usually go to. So, or like students don't pick them out when they are like making their final college list. So that is why it brings us back to the first point, that you need to thoroughly research your college list and then we make up a final list. And students, like, obviously students aspire to go to the best colleges, and more often than not, students only apply to those universities that come in their dream category, and they end up not getting an admission from any single one of them, because even though their extracurriculars and their grades are good, they just meet the minimum benchmark of that university, and those universities are highly competitive. Like the Ivy Leagues only have an acceptance rate of 3 to 4%, 5%, and aspiration is good. Applying to those universities is good, but don't solely base your entire applications on those universities, or don't have your hopes only on those universities. Always a good idea to have a lot of safety options and a lot of reality options. And moving towards the second thing, that a second common mistake that students often make is that they have very weak or generic essays. Now, or they use AI or certain tools to help them with their essays or their extracurriculars. Now, what happens is that all of these universities have AI detection tools, and if you once they get your application, they put it in the AI detection tool, and if it comes up as heavily reliant on AI tools, or there's a lot of AI, artificial intelligence scripts in your application or in your essays or in your extracurriculars, the university does not proceed further with your application and they reject you straight out. So you should never use these AI tools or these essay writing tools which are widely available online to do your essays, but the essays should be more geared towards your personal experiences. Like the first thing the student has to do is write a common app prompt. They have 7 prompts this year. Like for the even for the first prompt that they have with the background, identity or interest of a student, an AI tool is never gonna know your story. An AI tool is never gonna be able to write what you can basically write about your identity, background, interest or talent, or in the way that you can write about your own self or your experience. So even over here at Edify, I always tell my students we have an entire team of Ivy graduates, Oxford graduates that are sitting here to help students with their common app prompts. They basically, like, over the course of 1 or 2 months, they basically ask the student to write their Common App prompts again and again. Then they recheck them, give you advice, give you suggestions on how you can make those prompts better. So it's always a good idea to write a Common App essay prompt by yourself, and then get help from seasoned counselors or seasoned people who have already gone through this process, and they can help you with the essays. Again, another thing, the students do make this mistake sometimes, that they either start telling the counselor or the application or in their Common App essay that their background starting from their childhood, or they write a sob story or how their life has been so difficult. It's not always about writing a sob story or writing about your entire life. If you read essays which have previously gotten students into notable universities, you'll see that those essays are made very meticulously. Those essays are written with the students' own ingenuity, own expressions, own sense of identity, sense of interest for the first prompt, or sense or a talent that they somehow got towards or they had from their childhood. So it's good to practice your essay again and again, and have these people review your essays and then give you advice on how you can make them better. The same goes for the extracurriculars. Now students use like AI tools or chat GPT or DeepSeek to basically write a 2-sentence description of their extracurriculars. Now again, the university has AI detection tools, and when they see all of your extracurriculars written down from AI, they will automatically reject your applications. You should and over here at Edify, we help students, we give them samples of how previously admitted students to notable universities have written down their extracurriculars, or how you can fashion those extracurriculars to showcase your achievements best. So don't use AI. Again, I'll be explicit about it. Use these examples, use your own ingenuity to write your extracurriculars. And the final thing I would like to talk to you about is deadlines. Now again, a student sometimes becomes so overwhelmed with the whole procedure of the Common App, or all the universities, all the essays he has to write, everything he has to do, that they often forget about the deadlines, they miss the deadline. This process takes about 1 year, so you should always start in your O-level final year or in the start of your AS to build your profile, start researching universities, be ready for the whole Common App procedure, because the Common App only lasts from August till January, and then there are different types of deadlines, like the early action, early decision, regular deadline, and students become confused in which cycle or which deadline they have to meet, or which option to take up. Over here at Edify Elite, we let the students know early, and we basically make a whole Excel chart, and we tell the students how to manage that chart, and we often put in these deadlines on their Google Calendar. So because in this generation everyone uses their phones, and if a notification pops up on your phone that the deadline is today or the deadline is coming up, the student can always make that deadline and get reminded of that deadline. One thing more I would like to add here, that sometimes students miss their deadlines because they don't have all their documents ready. So now the application documents are different and the financial aid documents are different. When we talk about the application documents, they might include your counselor's letter, or your counselor's basically recommendation. Then you have your teacher recommendation, your outside recommendations, and you really have to chase people to write down your recommendation, because people don't take that much pain to write recommendations, and you really have to chase people to get these recommendations ready. Then you have to get your internal results, then you have to get your final results, and a lot of things, a lot of documents you have to manage with your application. So it's always a good idea to have your application ready at least a week, 10 days before the actual deadline. And while talking about this, I also need to mention that financial aid documents are different. For the CSS profile or the IFSA form, you need your parents' tax returns, their bank account details. So these kind of financial documents that are going to go into that application, and more often than not, students fail to acquire all of those documents on time. They have to go to the bank, they have to go to their tax consultants to get these documents, and the students often forget to get these documents or don't get them on time, leading them to miss out on the CSS profile deadlines and then failing to secure a scholarship. So these are just some of the common mistakes, the very common mistakes that students make. And there are other mistakes, there are a lot of things that go into your common app applications or your CSS profile, and it's a very difficult and daunting process, to say the least. So don't make these common mistakes, and if you need help with other things that you can't navigate or you're having trouble navigating, Edify Elite is always here to help you, to guide the students. And thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.